Is entrepreneurship a factor of production? Traditionally, economists considered that there were three factors of production: land, labor, and capital. And the only way to increase the GDP was to increase one of these three factors. But then along comes an econometric study by Solow related to what is called New Growth Economics, which showed that increases in capital only accounted for 20% of the growth in the U.S. during the study period. And the other 80% he attributed to technological growth. By capital, he was very specific. He meant buildings, machinery, and infrastructure used in the production process. So this threw a whole kink into the three factors of production. Since then, economists have been adding more factors to the factors of production, including entrepreneurship, human capital, the state of technology, and under human capital they included human assets, employee knowledge, skills, know-how, good health, diversity, and education. What a surprise, a bunch of university professors pushing education, probably including more funding for a university. So the list just keeps expanding, making the whole thing meaningless. By entrepreneurship, they mean an individual who starts a business, bearing most of the risk and enjoying most of the rewards. There's been a lot of criticisms about what entrepreneurship is. It just appears to be some combination of the other three factors, plus maybe organization. More importantly, how do you measure entrepreneurship in an economy? Well, I can tell you from empirical evidence, you get more entrepreneurship when you have strong protection of property rights. We can measure that. We can measure how strong the property rights are in a given country. So I'm skeptical of the idea of entrepreneurship being a factor of production, as are other economists. In fact, I do not like the whole factors of production thing. It's like treating the economy as just a machine. If you adjust certain inputs, you get a different output. Very central planning. It essentially denies the fact that human beings are rational animals. But I think we can clarify all this nonsense by going back to the fundamentals. The first fundamental is that the only thing that we really care about is real per capita increases in income. Unless you're a king or a dictator, the GDP being higher doesn't matter to you unless it's an increase in the per capita GDP, which leads to an increase in wages or earnings. Another fundamental we need to understand, if we're going to make economics a science, we have to understand that the basic unit of economics is energy that's available to human beings. If you do not obtain more energy than you use, then you run at a loss and you die. How do people obtain more energy for themselves? Well, looking at anthropology, we can see that one of the first things that human beings did was to create a hand axe. The hand axe allowed human beings to break the bones of animals and therefore get at the marrow of their bones, which allowed them to gain a lot more energy. Then humans also harnessed fire or invented how to make fire. The point of fire for cooking is that it pre-digests your food, which means that you get more calories out of the food than you would if you ate it raw. It also gave you a source of light, which protected you from animals, and a source of heat, which kept us warm, reducing the calories we needed to stay alive. If you think about it, this is the same point of a tractor or a combine or genetically modified seeds or plants. It is also the point of planes, trains, automobiles, because if you can transport something or yourself farther, you can get more energy. It is also the point of all our medical inventions. So it's obvious that the way that man increases his energy per capita is by increasing technology. That is by creating invention. What is Solow's technology? Increases in technological change is the rate of invention. We know, just like any other area, when you provide property rights for something, you get more of it. Millay points out that cattle were almost wiped out in Argentina until the property rights of ranchers were recognized. A similar scenario played out with elephants in Africa. Similarly, if you provide property rights for inventors and inventions, you get more of them, which is why the US was the most inventive country in the world and was home to the most well-known and prolific modern inventors, such as Tesla, Edison, Westinghouse, Alexander Graham Bell, and so on. To the extent that entrepreneurship includes inventors, then I'd say yes, it's a factor of production, but it's not one you can measure. What we can measure is how strong the property rights are for inventors, and how strong the property rights are in general. Right now, property rights for inventors almost do not exist. The worldwide patent system has been captured by big corporations and the deep state. Property rights are the fundamental foundation of freedom and capitalism. Long live freedom, damn it.